Okay, we're here today with Roy Olson. And to start, can you tell us some background information about yourself?
Yep.
What year were you born?
1922,
Okay, and where were you born?
Minneapolis.
Okay, and what did your parents do
What did my parents do?
for a living?
My dad was a farmer
Mm-hmm.
to begin with, and my mother was, how far back? She was just a housewife when she got married.
Mhm.
She married him from,
What kind of farm did your dad have?
he was a wheat farmer.
Did you grow up on that farm or was it just for a
No,
while?
because he did that before they were married.
Mm-hmm.
And he came from Sweden, my mother came from Norway, and they met in Arizona. She was a Harvey girl, and he was recuperating from World War I, having gotten TB.
Okay. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have one brother.
Okay, and then did you grow up and go to school in Minnesota?
No, my dad's folks, we were there to begin with, in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we grew up until he died. He died in when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after that, we moved to Michigan. And from about 6th grade, I guess 5th or 6th grade, we grew up in Holly, Michigan.
Where's that near?
That's over the middle of the state near Pontiac, Flint area.
Okay. And did your mom start working or did you get help
No,
with
she
family
was
members?
able to sustain us on a government pension from World War I.
Okay. So what was it like growing up in Michigan during the Depression?
Great.
No problems?
No kid.
How was school?
It was fun.
And so you graduated from school about 1940?
41.
41? While you were in high school, did you feel anxious about any of the news you heard from Europe, or were you not really aware of what was going on?
No, wasn't very aware of it.
Mhm.
I was aware of it, but it wasn't concerned me.
Did you start working after high school?
Pardon?
After high school, did you start
Well,
working?
then I went to college,
Where'd you go?
and Andrews University, the Seventh-day Adventist School, Berrien Springs, Michigan.
Okay.
And it was there in 41, of course, that we heard about Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And 43, now that's 43, I was drafted.
What were you going to college for?
I was in pre-dental.
So did you get through 1 or 2 years?
2 years.
2 years. And then you were drafted.
Yep.
Did you get to finish your last semester, or did they just pull you right out of there?
No, I finished my last semester, 2 years, but didn't have my complete pre-dental requirements.
Mm-hmm. And what part of the service were you drafted into?
I was in medics.
Is it in the Army Medical Corps? And where did they start you at boot camp?
Well, registered in Pontiac. A couple of weeks later, they sent me to Fort Custer, the same place my dad was.
Mm-hmm.
From there, they sent me to Camp Grant, Illinois, for 6 weeks basic training.
What kind of things did you learn in basic training?
Oh, learned how to march. And a funny thing happened to me there. I was in D Company, but one evening I heard drum and bugle corps practicing down a couple barracks, and so I went down. I said, could I play along with you for the fun of it? He said, well, go on up in the attic and find a snare drum and a couple of sticks and have fun. So I did. Well, after I'd practiced with him a couple of times and went on one march, when the camp is interviewed by the general, all people go by and we lead in the march.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know just how far into the 6 weeks it was, But they said all the drum and bugle corps boys are to be transferred to C Company.
Mm-hmm.
I got transferred there, and from there, I got shipped to Walter Reed Hospital
Mm-hmm.
when I finished. I didn't know until later where the guys from D Company went. So I went to Walter Reed, and I was there over a year, and I was corpsman in charge of the venereal disease clinic.
So then you only had to train for 6 weeks.
Hmm?
You only had to train for 6 weeks, and you just got
Yeah.
sent right there?
I was in partly in D Company, and the last part in C Company, and then that's where they went, I went.
Okay.
They split us up, of course.
So was this like a big medic center or a small hospital, or what was it like back then?
Walter Reed,
Hmm.
the main army center of the United States.
How was it different from the 40s as it is now, though?
I was what?
Was it a lot smaller in the 40s than it is now? How many different people were you dealing with at the time?
Oh, it was a monstrous place then.
Okay.
It had a campus and had several departments, had a big hospital.
Hmm. So was it 1943 or 44 that you
I'm
were
40, that's 43, 44,
Okay.
first part,
And so you were working there for about a year.
yeah.
What were the living quarters like?
There was a barracks, a whole string of them. They weren't bunks,
Mm-hmm.
and I had one. I suppose there were 30, 40 guys in there.
Did you get along with the people you worked with?
Did I what?
Did you get along with the people you worked
I
with?
didn't have too much interaction with them because they had a community center, you could play pool. And I could go off base a little bit because I had a pretty much regular hours there at the clinic, and I just walked over to the clinic and gave my shots, took the spinal taps and whatever you do to treat venereal disease.
Mm-hmm.
You want some interesting things about that part?
Sure.
Well, the clinic was interesting in the fact that it was an outpatient primarily. We didn't have too many beds. And the gonorrhea people, they just came in for their shots and went. And just about then, 43, 44, is when penicillin was newly invented.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd get that in by the caseload, but it was hardly marked. It just came in bottles and white box. But we had people there with syphilis. They were treated, and one way we treated them was with malaria. And these guys were able to roam around, and when they'd be out on the campus sitting in for the summer, they could feel the chill coming on. And I remember one guy especially, he came tearing in. He was just a shaking. He jumped in bed, and I pwned about 4 blankets on him until the shaking stopped. Then we had another section of about 10 or 15 guys, which was a big room that was locked. And this was tertiary syphilis.
Okay.
That meant that syphilis spirochete has gone to their brain, and they were mental. So they were locked up and were treated in a special way. I didn't have much to do with them. One gonorrhea patient that was in the patient was really something. He had what they call gonorrheal arthritis. And although the floor was solid cement, just walking in, if he didn't go quiet, that jar would make him have pain.
Wow.
And so that, well then, towards the end of the year, they asked if any volunteers to take patients, different places that have been treated there, and I volunteered. And the first guy was a guy that had no hands, he had no eyes. And I was supposed to take him to Halloran General Hospital in New York.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about going there, but he knew his way around and got into Central Station, and he knew just exactly where to get the cab and stuff. We took ferry over to Staten Island and found Halloran General Hospital, and I said goodbye. and I somehow got back to Walter Reed. And the next guy that I offered to take was a pilot. I don't know if he's a pilot or a bombardier. Anyhow, he had made 26 bombing missions in the South Pacific. And all he would talk about was the missions. And he said the thing that was hard about it was when you're out there and you go out into the Pacific Ocean, you can't see anything for 100 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And if you miss your island by half a degree, you're going to be way out nowhere. So after he did that about 26 times, he couldn't take it anymore. So I, with two other guys, was to take him to San Diego to a veterans hospital. And it was a sad sight because when he got in there, I saw a whole string of guys, and they all looked crazy and bent over. I heard by the grapevine that he later, having friends visit him and stuff, recovered. Well, that's the end of...
While you were there, you said you worked regular hours then, like maybe to like 9 or 6, and then you had the night off?
Yeah, well, except every once in a while, I would have to pull night duty in addition. But usually I was off. And I remember one night duty was at the psych ward. And after I'd been there a while, they were missing one of the guys. And so we corpsmen went out all around, looking around, and we found him. Some of those barracks were up on blocks about a foot or two. And we called, I guess he must have answered, because we found him way under one of those barracks. And we asked him, why? He says, my feet stink. He had jungle rot on his feet, and it was bad smelling. But he had gone mental over that, and he thought they still smelled, even though he was being treated and they didn't. So we found him and brought him back in. Another interesting thing I did on night duty was I was in Walter Reed and had to go to a certain area where they had seriously ill soldiers. And my job was to watch an oxygen tent that it didn't run out of oxygen. And then after it was going good, and I'd walk out in the hall a little bit. And just down at the end of the hall was General Pershing from World War I. He was the head of the whole thing in Europe. So I didn't talk to him because he was in his final days, but I thought it was just neat to do that. So then...
Well, did you have weekends off then? While you were there, did you have weekends off?
Yeah.
Were you able to ever go visit family or friends or go travel?
Once I went home, I went out to, I can't think of the name of the airport, but I went out to the end of the airport near Washington, D.C., and servicemen, if plane was going your direction, there wasn't too many people you could pick a ride. So I hooked a ride, and I got back to Selfridge Field in Detroit, and I took a bus from Detroit into Holly once and saw my mother and some friends on the weekend. And then I got a plane back, had to take a bus back, got back to Selfridge Field, got back, time. What other things I do in the weekend? Oh, I met some guys, the local guys, we went roller skating. Bethesda, I remember it was over there by the Navy Hospital. And I'd go to church. And then the war was over in Europe, and they were starting to collect 1 million men to invade Japan.
While you were there, did you ever worry or think that you might get sent to the Pacific?
I didn't think about it. There was always a chance. But I did get picked to go to the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
But before I went to Pacific, I had to go to Texas for another basic training to get toughened up again, because I had been just a lab work.
Yeah, so it wasn't advanced, it was just more basic, just to,
It was really
Catch
more
up.
toughing up than anything else.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can remember that camp in Texas. It was near Camp Barkley, Texas, near Abilene. And we did a lot of long marches, a lot of crawling under barbed wire fence with bullets shooting overhead, a lot of climbing walls and going hand over hand on overhead ladders, and just general bivouacking,
Mhm.
living out in a tent. And I guess that's mainly what it was, to get you in shape. And then I shipped out of there, went on a troop train across the United States, real old train, hanging lamps from World War I. And I pretty much went to some center there, and then they sent me to Seattle. And from there I shipped out on a troop ship, a Liberty ship,
do you remember the name?
just a Liberty ship.
Okay.
And they told us that a couple of those had split in the middle, and that was in the paper.
Uh-huh.
The Liberty ship were made, they're up that way somewhere, but they were finished by bringing two ends together and welding them, bolting them. And one or two of those ships, I actually saw it in the paper, and just on a bad storm. We went over to Hawaii as a separating point. It was supposed to be 10 days, 3 days trip by ship to Hawaii.
Mhm.
It took us 10 days. We were in bad storm. And well, I think just about everybody got sick,
Yeah.
bad sick. And some of the guys didn't come out of their bunks for the whole trip.
How many people do you think were on the ship?
3,000.
Okay.
And you'd stand at chow time in a steel plate, and if you didn't hang on to it, it'd roll off the stand. I remember that. And more than one of us, including me, when we got to where the went out, and we'd shake off our tray, many of us would just vomit in a thin tray. Well, when I got over to Hawaii, I saw the bullet holes in Hickam Field, airfield,
Mhm.
where the Japs had hit it. And I went to a transition point, filled up a bunch of barracks, 3,000 of us. And after a couple of weeks, they began shipping out, most of them down under, they call it. Till my barracks and 5 other, including me, were left in the hot base.
And you were there for about 3 weeks?
Yeah, 2 or
What
3
did you do
weeks.
during that time?
Nothing.
Nothing. Pretty boring?
I can't remember doing anything. Maybe it was only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No, we didn't do anything. Can't remember. So we, 5 of us got in a big truck, and they dropped us around different places in Hawaii. And I had just had a physical, during that time. I remember the doctor asked me, he says, "You think you could carry a guy 300 yards on your back?" I said, "I think so." I thought for sure I was going right down, but I was one of the 5 of the 3,000 that was dropped away. They dropped me off at 147th General Hospital, which was a Catholic junior college. They had transformed into emergency hospital.
Okay.
So for about 6 months, I guess, I was in that one. And I worked 2 jobs there, a clerk and in the orthopedic where we fix guys' broken legs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my job, one of them was to cut off these casts, and all we had was a sharp knife. And it was a terrible job because you couldn't put any pressure without hurting the guy, and you couldn't get the cast off and cut open without putting pressure. They didn't have one of these nice little knives or saws.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for almost a year there. It was, I don't know how long. Then they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They closed down 147 General, and they transferred me to Tripler General. That's a big hospital over there. And I was there for, I don't know, several months. I don't know the exact time there. And I worked in the office there because I could type a little. So I worked there until I was discharged at Camp Beale, California. And here's the rest of that story. When I was waiting for my discharge to get finalized, I was out just walking around the camp at night, looking at olive trees, stuff I'd never seen before. And I met a guy coming towards me, and he looked familiar. He had a scar on his face, and as I got closer to it, I said, "Hey, you were the first sergeant in C Company, weren't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What happened to all you guys?" See, I went from, he was the first sergeant of D Company. I went from D Company to C Company. And I met the first sergeant of D Company. He says, "Most of us got shipped right over to England. Most of us went in on D-Day, and most of them got killed." I said, "I can only remember one guy, and I don't remember his name." But when the troops went marching, about, I suppose, 50 of us, they always had one guy out in front that carried the flag of our company number. And I noticed he was very tall. I said, "You know what happened to that guy, Don?" "Yes, he was killed going in." So I met that guy. I should have got his name, but I didn't keep track. Well, then after getting discharged in Camp Beale, I still only had service clothes. So I took the train back to Michigan and back to Holly, where I spent the summer, and then I went back to college and finished my pre-dental.
Okay, so did you just have another year or two then, or?
Yeah, one year.
Okay. And did you go on to grad school after that?
And then I went to dental school,
Mm-hmm.
and after that, private practice of dentistry for 10 years, and decided I wanted to go back to surgery. So I went back to grad school, got accepted in oral surgery at UMKC,
Mm-hmm.
and finished my oral surgery. The first job I had out of there was teaching at the University of Chicago, where I developed the oral surgery program they had. It lasted many years until finally it amalgamated with the University of Illinois. After 10 years in University of Chicago, I went back into private practice of oral surgery at Quincy, Illinois for 15 years. I was in private practice of oral surgery. I retired in '91, came back up to this area. Several of my old friends were still living. I got to see them. They're dropping off, but there's a few around yet. And so I retired in '91 and been living in West Allen ever since.
Mm-hmm. What do you do with your spare time now that you're retired?
Well, I visit some old people around that can't get out. I attend church. I am an avid history buff. I read a lot of history. And take care of the house. I have 2 children. I visit my daughter quite often in our Arbor. She comes over quite often. My son's in Hinsdale. He's very busy. He's at Shirley. I see him a few times a year, but not so often.
Didn't get to ask you, while you were working in Hawaii, was there any other interesting stories that happened with patients there, or did you get to know any of the civilians there?
Well, one interesting thing, it wasn't so exciting, was that when sometimes there too, I would pull night duty. Most of the time I was in the operating room with the doctors assisting. But once in a while I pulled night duties, and I'd go into the ward where they were treated, and it's a huge ward, and there were if you've ever seen some of these suspensions they put orthopedics in, some have their arms up, some have legs up, some are back. But when I go in there and just do little errands, one thing they liked was a watch with a fluorescent dial. So they'd give me money, and I'd go to the PX, and I'd buy them a watch with a fluorescent dial. So then at night, nights got long, but they could still tell time at night. So that's what. Otherwise, it was kind of quiet.
Was it nice there on your time off? It seems like such a vacation area, people wanting to go to
Yeah.
Hawaii. Or was it kind of hectic just because it was in the Pacific at the time?
From our operating room window, which is on the side of the mountain, I could overlook Waikiki Beach. And with other buddies, I'd go down to the beach once in a while and did a little swimming, didn't try any surfing. A fun thing, after the Japs surrendered, they'd let us use some of the hospital's vehicles, and I got to be a sergeant, but not lieutenant or captain. On the weekends, they would let, from the motor pool, the guys take a Jeep, but I could get an ambulance. They had a lot of extra ambulance, so on the weekend I'd drive to church, and after church pick up half a dozen guys, and we'd go driving all around the island. And that was exciting. I don't know, nothing really exciting. It was.
What was the atmosphere like on the day that Japan got bombed? Or at least can you remember how
I
you
can't
felt?
remember exactly. I'm sure we all shouted. And I don't know exactly, I don't remember that day. I could have been in the operating room. I don't remember what day it was, so it was on a weekend. I might have been out of town. But I don't remember.
Okay. And then, so once Japan did surrender, you still had to wait there a little bit before you got discharged?
Yeah.
Was it quite a while?
Oh, it was probably 3 or 4 months, something like that.
Were you still working then?
Yeah, I was in a tripper all that time. My job there was, it's funny how the Army works, what they had a whole wall full of thick books with loose leaf pages. In my job, kind of boring. I get in a new order, and then I have to rescind the old order. I take it out of the book and I put the new order in. I did that all day long for several months. And I did get to fly home. I didn't have to take a boat home to Campbell.
Well, after the war ended, did the work intake kind of slowly level off, or were you always really busy?
I was pretty busy because when I got home, that was, I think, in August, or it says on there when I got out.
April.
April, spring. So I had the summer in Holly to recuperate. The second week I was home, I was playing touch football in the backyard with 3 other guys. And there was a little sidewalk there, and my foot caught as I was running, sat right down on my leg and broke it. And these other medics, they took great charge of me. One held my shoulders, and my brother got a hold of my leg and straightened it out, and sent some guys inside to get some newspapers. They wrapped it up and took me to Flint, to the hospital. When they x-rayed it, they said it was in perfect alignment, so they just put another cast on. So I wound around that summer. I took music lessons from a piano teacher. But by the time fall came, I was able to run and play touch football again, and didn't have any more trouble with it.
When you went back to school, did the government help pay for
Oh,
it?
yes. I lucked out on that. That 1 year pre-dental and all 4 years of dental school got paid by the GI Bill.
Good.
I had one bill in dental school. One of the big tests at the end is you have to fabricate a gold crown from scratch, you know. And the gold cost $30, $40. And I paid for that myself, that's all. I don't know if it ran out or not, but I figured that was okay. So I lucked out.
Were you ever contacted again by the Army to try to see if you wanted to join the service during the Korean War?
Would I have joined the war?
Did you ever get contacted again to join?
Oh, well, at Camp Beale, they offered you a good deal if you'd stay in.
A bonus for enlistment?
I had no thought of that.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't contacted anything about Korean War. I did, they kept me up to date for a while on my status. I don't know what it was, but a discharge.
Okay. Do you have any more memorable stories or anything that you wanted to tell us?
Well, if you go beyond the war, I went back, took that 1 year of pre-dental. And second year, when was it? 49. The years slipped me a little bit, but I married that girl that I met when I came back from the war. Ginny Stearns was her name. And we became engaged about Thanksgiving time of that would have been a bit 46. And then we were engaged for a couple of years till she finished her schooling, high school, or college. And then we got married my second year, I think it was, of dental school. And then she was a music teacher in a little high school there in Broadview, near Chicago, where I finished my last 2 years of dental school. And then we moved to Marabou, Wisconsin. Her home was in near Janesville, Milton. And we moved up near her place for 10 years at general dentistry. Then I went back to oral surgery.
Okay.
Has that been